Welcome to Ogrids. Today we're going to talk about the top 10 reasons why the COSMERE should be animated. With Brandon Sanderson announcing that he's writing the screenplay for Mistborn about a month ago, we're going to talk about whether or not we think it should be animated or live action. I'm guessing most of you agree. It would be better off as a TV series or a mini-series than it would as movies. They can fit more in, they're longer, they get more details, and Sanderson, all about those details. We're going to start at number 10 with a boring one, the one that you've probably thought of, the cost. Okay, have you considered how much it would cost to do one movie for every single book? That's like 30-something books. Okay, we're talking double the size of the Marvel Cinematic Universe by the time this is complete. I mean, we're going to have 10 from Stormlight, and we're going to have another 3,700 from the rest of it. Number 9, the environments. Now this one is a pretty big one for me. In a lot of comment sections, I've seen people go back and forth on the fact that, well, the environment doesn't really matter. It's not that important to the story. Listen, Sanderson is all about the environment. He's a world builder at heart. A lot of scenes should be shot large open shots. We want to see Elantris, the shattered plains, ash falling, shadows for silence in the forests of hell, white sand, creatures that he's created, these worlds. I would much rather them be animated because I think they could do it right and it wouldn't be weird, like The Hobbit. Number 8, this is important to Brandon Sanderson. It's important to me. The races. He's so specific with creating races and ethnicities. I want to do that justice. And I don't think we'll be able to cast people correctly enough to play people like the Parshendi, to play people like the Elantrians who are healthy, the Elantrians who are sick, to play characters from Threnody and characters from White Sand, characters from Scadrial with their ash and gray skin because there's no sun, and all of the different peoples of Roshar. That's so much. And add on top of that all of the people living in the cognitive realm in Shadesmar, all of the different types of Spren. That's getting very, very different. And I would love to see some prosthetics used and some Star Wars-esque work, maybe Lord of the Rings trilogy stuff, if it went live action, but honestly, I would rather see it animated. Number 7, we're looking at any of the sapient or sentient races that aren't human. That's the Seons, the Spren, any other type of thought-filled creature that is not human. Animating that into a live action, while doable, is something that I don't want to see them do because I'm too afraid that they're going to screw it up. The Spren are so strange in their look, in their movement, in their interaction with people and characters in the world. I would rather see it animated, and I think that it would just flow better, because if they screw up in one spot, you're going to notice that more than if they get most of it right. So if they have that one moment where something's off with the Spren, that's going to screw with it. Whereas in animated, you might not notice it because everything else is also animated. Number 6, warning. This is a little touchy. We don't know what's coming. We have got a minimum of 5 more Mistborn books. Probably more like 10 if he writes all the ones that he says he wants to. We've got at least 7 more Stormlight books. Maybe a Arithmetis sequel. I'm fine. Hoyt's backstory? Dragonsteel? I mean, we have no idea what's coming. What is Sanderson gonna do? Are we comfortable of just going all in with live action with having no clue what's coming? That seems ridiculous. I mean, we got through 7 seasons of Game of Thrones and it went pretty well, and the last one just bombed, so I'm a little worried having way less information heading into this way bigger universe. Number 5, combat. Animated combat. Doesn't matter who your voice actor is, you can make the combat do anything. You have things like Pewter, the Feruchemists, Stormlight making people faster. All of these things that change someone's physical ability is really hard to get across in a live action. You know, I don't want it to get to Dragon Ball Z with just a bunch of head movements and random blurry arms and legs, but I think it could be done better as animated, because the speed and skill in a fight scene, live action, you're relying a lot on an actor you've hired, hopefully, to portray the character, not have the physical skills of that character. Number 4, internal monologues, and the opening of every single chapter. You need to take a moment and think of every opening line in Sanderson. Every chapter starts with a quotation or a thought or a sentence or a moment or a letter or a conversation that is happening outside of present time, in a different place, in a different context. Someone else is talking or narrating. Could they do that in live action? Yes. Would they need someone most of the time to verbally narrate to get that across? Yes. Would it completely ruin it when you hear a specific person say, "I am the hero of ages"? Yes. At the very beginning of book 3 of Mistborn, like that happens in the audiobook version, and you ruin the ending before you've even started? I don't want to get into that mess. And if you are doing an animated show and you have 7 seasons of 20 episodes a season, you can throw in all the most important quotations as little just blips, just like in Star Wars The Clone Wars. You have that little quote come up at the beginning, leave it up on screen, fade, start the story. That gets a lot of that little tidbits of info that Sanderson loves to have in there across without having to have a clumsy narrator, which does not usually come across well in a live action setting. The internal monologues part of this seems like it might be a different number, but they go hand in hand. Again, someone narrating out loud something that they're thinking can come across strange and awkward in a live action. In a lot of animes, characters have those internal monologue moments where maybe the camera freezes on them for a second, their eyes widen, and then they have a sentence or two that they say where everything around them slows. Could you make that work in live action? Yeah, probably. Is it already done well in all well-done animated shows? Yeah, it is. And honestly, I think that is at the core of how Sanderson writes good characters, is their internal monologues, and that's how he gets across most of his information. It's also the number one way he uses one of his favorite writing devices, imperfect narrators. And if you have the internal monologues from his characters who are narrating the story, you're going to get that imperfect idea that he wants to plant in your mind. You're going to hear that like he does when a certain character dies, and he throws you for a loop because you just believe what the narrator says. Number 3, timelines. Timelines. This is so important. None of the COSMERE is running on a straight line. Now, we don't even know if the COSMERE runs on a straight line timeline-wise. It could not be a timeline. It could be a time circle. It could be a time wave. It could be a time parallelogram. I'm not sure. But the characters appear and disappear from different worlds and at different times and appear when they shouldn't be able to together. We have Yatil, who is one of the masked characters who is born in Silverlight, which is a city in Shadesmar, but she appears in Oathbringer and Words of Radiance, and yet she's from Scadrial Era 2, where we also have Demu, who's from Scadrial Era 1, and the spy from House Venture from Mistborn Book 1 and 2. He reappears on Scadrial. We've got world hoppers from all different books appearing. We have people talking about Threnodies, not to mention a certain specific character working behind the scenes this whole time who died. I mean, the secret history alone throws this whole timeline thing out of whack. And that is something I don't want to see messed with, because I'm worried if we go live action, you're going to cast someone as a character that you think is unimportant, and then 3 movies later or 2 seasons later, we're going to suddenly have that character reappearing. You've recast them, we don't know who they are, we can't recognize them, and that little Sanderson tidbit that is so integral to his writing has disappeared. Now, number 3 merges into number 2, and it's actors in real life. The reason these go together is kind of that timeline thing. We got 10 movies for just Stormlight. Okay, if we're doing live action movies, we get Mistborn Movie 1, Mistborn Movie 2, Mistborn Movie 3. That's 3 movies just for that one trilogy. If we do 10 movies for Stormlight, or even a season of a show per book, or maybe a season of a show per book and a half, that's going to get dicey with character actors. Now, this is a moral, ethical issue you can talk about with Yasin and Shallan if you want, but I don't really want to see people brought back from the dead to portray old roles. It felt very weird to me to see Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars, and de-aging in Tron Legacy was, okay, but that's not really something I want to see regularly. And if we're looking at 3 decades of movie and TV making for these books or shows, I am a little worried that we might lose actors to aging or walking away from deals. And if we go animated, you just have to replace them with someone that sounds kind of similar. Doesn't matter who the voice actor is, you can make it work. Before we get to number 1, make sure you hit like and subscribe. We want to make sure we see you back here on Ogrids. Check out the rest of our content as we discuss everything in nerddom that we possibly can. Number 1 is Brandon Sanderson's absolute favorite. You guessed it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Hoyt. Now, Hoyt is an important character if you don't know, because he appears in every single COSMERE book. Sometimes he talks, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he's just mentioned. Sometimes he confronts characters directly. And if you're up to date on the Stormlight Archive, sometimes he's an integral character. Sometimes he is vastly important. They're currently making the Mistborn movie. Hoyt appears in Mistborn. He's an informant. He meets with Kelsier. He pretends to be blind. It's very unimportant, but what happens when Hoyt meets with Kelsier vastly changes the rest of the story for different reasons that we might not quite pick up on. What I don't want to see is a live action show where they cast Willem Dafoe as Hoyt for this fun cameo, and then, oh whoops, we started shooting Stormlight in 2025 and we now have to pay Willem Dafoe to be a main character all the time, and he doesn't want to do it, and he's aging, or he's busy, or he's under contract somewhere else, and we have to change actors, and all of a sudden we're Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassusing him, and I just don't think it will work. Animated, you can pick whoever you want to play Hoyt. He's ageless, he's a god, he's an angel, he's a demon, he's no one important, he's vastly important. You gotta be able to have that elasticity of character, of movement, and you don't get that in live action. You need it to be animated. Thanks for checking us out here at Ogrids. Make sure to leave a comment in the comment section. Let us know why you disagree, why you agree, and maybe a reason we could have included in our list that we didn't. And yeah, if you think I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. Enjoy life.